Okay, everybody. I have something really cool to tell you about. If you haven't heard yet about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain here. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one single place. Now, the way that you can do this is you got to download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, and then you can get started. It's really fun. We just switched over recently here at All Too Real 2, and I'm enjoying it so far. So be sure to check it out and let us know what you think. Okay, everybody, welcome to this very special episode of All Too Real 2. I am Michael E. Cullen II, and with me as always is...
Matthew Haas, co-host and friend of the world.
Today we had the great opportunity to speak with actor and writer Eddie Deezen. He's an actor you would know from the movies Grease, Grease 2, WarGames, 1941... Midnight Madness, among others. He's also the voice of Mandark in Dexter's Laboratory. He was also in the movies Rockadoodle, and he was in Kim Possible, and also he played the know-it-all kid in The Polar Express. Here's the interview that we had just the other day with Eddie Deezen. Hope you enjoy. We'd like to welcome Eddie Deezen to the All Too interview portion of All Too Real 2 podcast. I'm Mike, and with me is Matt.
Hello.
And how are you doing today, Eddie?
Very good. Yeah, it's hot out here. We're going through a real hot spell in LA. It's actually a little cooled down this week, but it's still hot. It's not in the high 80s anymore, but the high 70s.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's actually, I think, cooler than what we got here in Ohio.
You're right. I think the country's going through much worse than what we're going through here, but it's hot for me.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell people a little bit about how you got started in acting?
Sure, Mike. I came out right after high school. I came out to LA. I worked at the Comedy Store. I did a couple bits up there, and I didn't like doing stand-up. I had a hard time memorizing lines, so it was hard for me to memorize my routines, but I worked there 3 times. I worked at the Comedy Store in L.A. and then the rest of it. Then I did the old Gong Show with Chuck Barris. That was my TV debut. I did that. I got gonged by Paul Williams, and then he was a real nice guy, but he did gong me on that. So that, yeah, and then I got Grease after that. I lucked out. They used to have the rule in Hollywood, you can't be in the union unless you work. You can't work unless you're in the union. And I wasn't in the union, so I couldn't work. But luckily, I auditioned for Grease. I got it, and they got me in the union. Paramount paid, and I got in the union. So I started out in a good film. Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
I really lucked out there. And then I just started working after that.
Yeah, I know I watched Grease more times than I can count. My sister was obsessed with it as a kid. So it was like one of the 2 VHS movies we had, and she would watch it over and over and over again. So it was fun.
Oh.
After a while.
That's good to hear. Tell your sister I said hi, Mike.
I will, for sure. Yeah, so what do you got going on now in your life? Like,
yeah,
what have you done lately?
I just wanted to promote on your show. I do have, by the way, I'll be my pleasure to answer any questions, but I did want to get a plug in.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
doing a Grease screening. We're having a screening in Fresno, California next Saturday night.
Awesome.
It's at 8 o'clock. The doors open at 6:30. I'll be signing there, doing a Q&A, and hosting a screening of Grease. It's at the Crest Theater in Fresno next Saturday, July 27th. So please be there if you're there. If you're near in the Fresno area, please come. I'd love to meet you.
Awesome.
Love to see you.
What kind of advice would you give anybody that's interested in getting into acting that hasn't, that is interested in starting?
Yeah, it's kind of like anything else in life. It's a dichotomy. There's a good side and a bad side. I'll tell you, the bad side, I think most people know, is it's very competitive, highly competitive field, and you can meet a few gnarly people, although most of the people are great, so I shouldn't even say that. There's a few gnarly people, but there's a few gnarly people in anything in life, you're going to meet that. But it is highly competitive, so that's a hard thing. If you can get the work, it's the greatest field in the world. You get overpaid. They overpay us tremendously. You get way more than we deserve. You meet great people. You meet really wonderful people, and it's very fulfilling. If you're an artist, you want to communicate that way. You want to make people laugh. You want to make them cry. You want to make them, feel whatever emotion. It's very fulfilling. It's a sad field because so many people do fail in it. There's X number of jobs, and there's millions and millions of people trying for these jobs, and there's not enough to go around. So it's sad in that way. But it can be a great field, it can be very rewarding. I know I've had a lot of great wins in it. I've had a lot of good times. But, I've had my bad stalls too, I think everybody's that way. It goes up and down. And it's not a field, Mike, like, plumber. You want to be a plumber or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. You go to school, you study, 8 years or whatever, and such, you get your cert and you get your diploma and you're that, you're that thing. With an actor, it's not that way. It's very capricious, it's very subjective. What you go through is it's individual, and you just go for the best. Anyway, to answer your question, the advice I give, Mike, I always the old James Garner. James Garner said, the guy from the Rockford Files, do you remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he said he got in and he said his father gave him the best advice. He said he wanted to be an actor in Glenwood. He said, give it 5 years. Give it the 5-year rule. Go in. You start like when you're 18 or 20 or 23 or whatever, 25. Give it 5 years. Give it everything you got for 5 years. Get pictures, go out, try to make all the contacts for 5 years. Because if nothing happens in 5 years, you probably don't have it. You probably just don't have what it takes. If you do have something, you'll probably get something in 5 years. Something will happen in 5 years. It'll occur and it'll work. So I say, give it 5 years. And, and you also figure 5 years isn't that big a portion of a person's life. No. You devote 5 years, you give it everything you've got. And if it doesn't happen, then you go and be something else. That's all. You still have the rest of your life, and 5 years is enough to devote to it. And you'd always say, I gave it a good try. I gave it a fair try,
Yeah, that's good advice. Hi, folks. This is Michael E. Cullen II from the podcast that you're listening to right now, along with
manager Matthew Haas.
You got promoted?
Yes.
Damn it. Okay, anyways, folks, do you like the show Superstore? I don't know. I asked the folks and nobody's answering me.
Because they're not here.
Oh,
but we love
damn it. Yeah, we love it, though. Okay, folks, if you like it as much as we do, you're really going to like the Super Story podcast, which is a podcast where Matthew and I go episode by episode and give our little opinions and thoughts on it. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we don't. Just depends on how we're feeling.
Yeah.
And, so if you like this podcast and like our little crazy banter,
then you should definitely check this out. Or I might get sad. And when I get sad, it gets pretty sad.
Yeah,
so
I can't deal with him when he's sad.
Yeah, no one can really. So
yeah. So check out Super Story Podcast right here where you get this podcast, Super Story Podcast.
Step 1, dramatic introduction. I am Magus Elgar.
Magus Thadalor Elgar is one of the more respected casters in all of Hearth.
The dragon bone plate in my skull probably needs its focus enchantment aligned.
Though don't expect to go under his tutelage unscathed.
Well, you know what they say. Pretension can turn intention into the best retention.
Nobody says that.
No, not really.
You can hear Magus Elgar and his exciting adventures. Visit MagusElgar.com to download your copy today.
Yeah.
Like so far, like in all the movies and TV shows and everything that you've been involved with, what is your favorite memory so far of everything you've done?
So many, Mike. That's such a great question. But I'd say working with Tom Hanks in Polar Express, because he was such a wonderful guy, and he's my favorite star. So working with him was like a real treat. And then another one is John Travolta, because he was such a great guy. Grease was my first film. It was exciting. And John, being with John, the whole cast and crew of Grease was great. But John really made it special. He was just such a wonderful guy. And I'd say I did a Magnum PI back in the 80s. And Tom Selleck was so nice. The whole cast and crew of Magnum was great. And going to Hawaii was like paradise, So that was kind of really special, too. Those are just some off the top of my head.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Tom Selleck. He seems like a really nice guy, too.
Yeah,
Tom
super
Hanks
nice.
as well. Speaking of people that you've worked with, if there's anybody that you haven't worked with yet, who would you love to work with that you haven't yet?
Such a great question. I would say, I'll give you an honest answer. He's getting kind of up there, but he's still churning out. Woody Allen. I'd love to do anything with Woody Allen. Go in a film and just do a cameo, get to do a scene with Woody Allen, get to be directed by Woody Allen, just to meet him, the experience. I'd love that. Now, that's kind of feasible because I would fit in with him. The other one, I don't know if I could ever work in his kind of film, but I would be honored to meet Clint Eastwood. He's one I've never come across to meet, and I would be honored to meet him, to do anything with him. So those would probably be the two now. I've run into so many over the years, and it's usually a good experience. Usually the biggest stars are the nicest people as a rule. But those are two I'd love to meet, and I've never met either one of them.
That's really cool. Yeah, and a lot of people, I've asked this question to several people, and a lot of people bring up both Woody and Clint, so that's kind of cool. So it seemed like they would be definitely people to work with.
Yeah, they're like, you figure these guys both go back to the 60s. They've been churning out movies since the 60s and, still churn out great stuff, and you just really admire these guys. Their careers are amazing and their talent is amazing.
Another question. What are you listening to or watching or reading right now that you would recommend to people that, you're not involved with? I'm just curious because I always like to know
right at this very moment, it's funny you ask, I'm watching Rio Bravo, one of my favorite westerns with Dean Martin. I think it's Dean Martin's best movie, Dean Martin and John Wayne. So I'm watching that. It's my second favorite western film outside of Tombstone is my favorite. This is my second favorite.
Awesome.
And Mike, to answer your question, I'm reading a John Lennon book. I'm a Beatles nut. I'm reading a book called Imagine about Yoko Ono wrote about her and John making the album Imagine. So I'm reading that. It's an excellent read. It's a great book.
That's awesome.
So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm always on Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time. I'm a Facebook addict. You can always go to my page and see what I'm up to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand the Beatles thing. I've been obsessed with them since I was probably about 5 years old, so I understand that.
Yeah. Did you hear about Paul and Ringo last week? Was that cool or what?
Yeah, that was really cool because, he came up on stage.
Yeah, I regret not going, because it's right down the street from me. I could have just driven down, or get a ride right down the street, got a couple tickets for a couple $100. I regret I didn't go, but I'd seen Paul in concert and I'd seen Ringo, but if I'd known Ringo was going to be there, I would have gone.
That would have been cool. Yeah. I saw a few pictures from it on Facebook on some of my friends actually went to that concert. I was kind of jealous of that.
Oh, man, what a great moment.
Yeah. Another fun question that I ask everybody.
Sure.
What is your guilty pleasure movie, something you might be afraid to admit that you love?
Oh, guilty pleasure. There's some old ones. I don't know if you know them. There's one called The Last of the Secret Agents I love with Marty Allen and Steve Rossi. It's one I love. There's one from the 50s, okay? This is a weird, but I don't know if you relate into weird esoteric films. There's one called Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it went on. But it was a Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis lookalikes. There was a team that imitated Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, and that movie is hilarious. It's one of my favorites. So those are my two biggest guilty pleasure films, I think.
Yeah, I have that one on DVD myself. I've watched it several times.
Isn't it great? Yeah. It's a great watch. It's so bad. It's so entertaining. And the guy, Sammy Petrillo, is so funny as Jerry. It's just such a funny movie.
Yeah, that's definitely, you definitely could tell they wanted to be Dean and Jerry.
They were, Martin and Lewis were so big, they probably figured, I think the movie bombed, but they figured, just put out this imitator and it'll go over. But it's funny to watch now in retrospect. I know Jerry wasn't too crazy about it. He didn't like it, but it's funny for us.
Yeah. What else, is there anything else that you would like to tell us about your time in working with any projects that you've done or anything that any interesting stories you'd like to share?
Well, working with Tom Hanks was always a treat. In Polar Express, he made it so much fun. He comes bouncing in the room the first day. Hi, Eddie, I'm Tom. He comes over and shakes my hand. It's like, no F, Sherlock. You're kidding, right? And then just so many special moments I had with him during the shoot. He's this bigger than life guy. He's kind of like a real life Santa Claus. He treats everybody great. He's such a nice, kind man, and he treats everybody great. He's just one of these guys that elevates you. He makes everybody happy around him, and he brings joy into the room. He's kind of, the closest I can say is just he's a real life Santa Claus. He's great. And then WarGames working with Matthew Broderick. He was a very, very nice guy. We went to the set together, and his father had just died, I remember, and I talked to Matthew, and he was kind of crying. He had tears in his eyes, I remember, about his dad, and he was a very, very nice guy. And worked with Michael J. Fox I worked with in a movie called Midnight Madness. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a funny little movie. And it was Michael J. Fox's first film, and Michael was a great guy. It was his first film when he was like about 18, and we talk about the Twilight Zone together, and we play handball at Disney Studios together. I'd bring a Super Ball in, and I remember us playing handball together against the brick wall. And he was just this little unknown kid. Then about 5 years later, I'm up at Universal, and he comes spinning up, this red Ferrari comes spinning up, and it's Michael J. Fox. He'd done Back to the Future, was the biggest star in the world, you know. It's funny about Hollywood. One day you're unknown, you know, then you're the biggest star, and that's what happened with Michael. And he was the same nice guy. He was just as nice as ever. No airs about him, no superior attitude, just a super nice guy.
That's really cool. I mean, he seems like he still is to this day. Hey, folks, this is Michael E. Cullen II from the podcast that you're listening to right now, along with
Matthew Haas.
We just wanted to tell you about our great podcast called Super. It's called All Too Real. And on that show, what do we do, Matt?
We watch biopics, and then we talk about whether or not the movie matched up with the real story or not.
So
it was a lot more exciting than that, though.
Yeah, so we analyze the real story and the real story. Get it?
Real.
You know? Yeah, they're spelled differently, folks. You can guess which one I said which way. Anyways, so sometimes we have guests, sometimes we don't. But we talk about great movies like Shattered Glass and The Social Network and Futile and Stupid Gesture, among others. Those are some of the ones that we've covered so far, and we're going to cover a lot more. So please subscribe on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your great, fun podcasts. And be sure to share it with your friends.
Do it.
And make sure you're not afraid to get all too real. Bye-bye. What is your like favorite film of all time?
A Hard Day's Night. Easy question for me. A Hard Day's Night, I've seen it probably 50 times. Greatest comedy. I'm a Beatles nut. Great music. It captured Beatlemania, you know. It's such a well-made comedy. It's one of the funniest movies ever made. It's like a perfect comedy all the way through. And, you know, it's funny about it. Most people in their minds, they still... Hard Day's Night was 55 years ago, and we still all have that general idea in our mind of what they were in that film. John is kind of the wisecracker, the wise guy. Paul's the cute one. George is the quiet one, and Ringo's kind of the goofy one, you know, the oddball, the outcast. But we kind of still have that idea after 50 years. Even though they went through all these changes, these are still the fundamental ideas we all have of the Beatles was from that film. We still hold those things. Yeah.
Very cool.
But that would be my favorite.
Yeah.
Western, like I told you, Tombstone. I love Tombstone. I watch that over and over. That's just a film I never get tired of. I love it. Yeah.
I love that too. What was that line? He's like, "You're my."
Yeah, isn't that a great movie?
You're my Huckleberry.
How did Val Kilmer not get nominated for an Oscar? I'll never know.
Yeah, I love that. You know, you're my Huckleberry and all that stuff that he does in there. That's
exactly. Yeah. It's funny. I did a signing show, Mike, with him years before. But before Tombstone, I'd never seen Tombstone. And I sat right near Val Kilmer, and I was looking at him, and I'd seen him in something. I wasn't that impressed. I go, this pretty boy. I go, this guy's got no talent. He's some pretty boy, big deal. And then later I saw him in Tombstone, and he hits it out of the park. He just smacks that grand slam. And I wish I could have told him what a great actor he is, but I didn't see it at the time. He really, that's an immortal role he did, the way he captured Doc Holliday.
I'm a big Batman fan myself, and I think he was probably one of the best Bruce Waynes, honestly. I don't know.
You like that? Yeah. He was the littlest one. He was kind of little to play Batman, but he did kind of capture it.
He was good as Bruce Wayne, I think, better than he was as Batman, but he was good still as both.
Yeah. That's an interesting observation. Maybe you're right. Yeah. I thought Michael Keaton did a good job. I mean, Adam West will always be the Batman.
Oh yeah.
But I thought Michael Keaton was good. I kind of wish he hadn't quit.
Oh, I know. He was probably the perfect modern,
he was
modern
great,
day.
And Jack Nicholson was a great Joker. I thought they were a great combination, those two.
So, I think that's all I've got for you right now. That I can think of. Okay. Definitely would love to talk to you again sometime. This was fun.
Thank you very much. Let me just say a few things. First of all, it was a pleasure to be on your show. You're a super nice guy, and it was my pleasure talking to you. You're a great interviewer, and I wish you continued success. I want you to have a wonderful summer. Take care. And tell Matt I said hi, too. And tell your sister I said hi.
Will do.
Think of me when you see the guy get hit in the face with a pie in Greece. My big scene.
Will do. Thank you. And have a good night.
Have a great rest of the summer, Mike. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And be sure to check us out online and subscribe and listen and share the show. And be sure to, if you can, if you hear this before the 27th, go check out Eddie in Fresno with his showing of Grease there. That sounds like fun. I wish I could be out there. But until then, right now, I'm going to say bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to All Too Real 2 podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Hawes. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.